Good morning, colleagues. Fugitive Offenders and Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Legislation Amendment Bill 2019. Bills Committee. We reached the scheduled time and we have also got a quorum as well. Just to be safe, this committee consists of 62 members. I shall read out the name of all the members. If those who are present but haven't signed up, you have to be careful. Well, it's barely okay that you ask questions, but not for you to vote. The secretary had allotted 3 days. Please stop. Okay, just like a few days. So I'm the first one, James Stove, followed by Leng Yu Chung, Abraham Sheck, Tommy Chung, Joseph Lee, Lam Kin Fong, Starry Lee, Chen Hak Ken, Dr. Priscilla Leong, Wong Kwok Kin, Regina Yip, Paul Che, Claudia Mo. Can you be quiet? I will not repeat it from start to finish because the members have to check whether they themselves are on the list. What point of order you wish to raise? Are you unsure if you have signed up? What point of order you wish to raise? Mr. Al? I think some members are quite noisy. I'm not able to listen to your names. Do you think they're of orderly conduct? Can you be quiet? Claudia Mo? Yeah, those are the ones who signed up. You don't have to say present. It's just for your own information only. Stephen Ho, Chen Yin, Frankie Yek Chi Ming, Wu Chi Wei, Hiu Si Wing, Charles Peter Mock, Chen Chi Chun, Chen Han Pen, Leung Ji Chang, Kenneth Leong, Alex McMahon, Dr. Kiki Kwok, Kwok Kwak Kung, Dennis Kwok Wing Hang, Christopher Chung Wa Fong, Dr. Belinda Chang Chiu Hong, Dr. Helena Wong Pik Wen, Yip Kin Yun, Dr. Elizabeth Quat, Martin Liao Chung Kong, Pun Xiu Ping, Dr. Cheng Lai Wan, Dr. Lo Wei Kwok, Felix Chung Wei Kwok Pen, Mr. Alvin Young, Angel Wen Xiu Kin, Eddie Chu Hoi Dick, Jimmy Nguyen Ka, Dr. Junius Hu Kwan Yu, Ho Kai Ming, Lam Chuk Ting, Holden Cha Ho Ding, Shu Ka Fei, Shu Ka Chun, Wilson Orson Ching, Eunice Yong Hoi Yan, Dr. Pierre Chan, Chen Chen Ying, Tanya Chan, Chen Kwok Quen, Ted Hui Chi Fong, Lok Chung Hong, Lau Kwok Fan, Dr. Chen Chung Tai, Kwang Chun Yu, Jeremy Tamman Ho, Gary Fan Kwok Wai, Ao Nok Hin, Tony Chen Wei Chin, and Chen Ho Yan. There are 62 in total. May I ask any members who think that they've signed up that's outside of 62 and which are present that isn't included in the list I read out. You thought you signed up? What do you want to rectify? Excuse me, Chairman. I think you mispronounced the Chinese name of Mr. Horace Chung Kwok Kwan. From my understanding, he should be Chung Kwok Kwan in Chinese. I think you have to respect the members in this council. Is he present? So it should be Chung Kwok Kwan in Chinese. Pardon me. I have a point of order. I think Mr. Lam Chok Ting, he's saying you pronounce him is Zhang Guoquan. Is not. I think he said some disrespectful thing about the chairman. He wish he could withdraw his statement. Mr. Lam Chok Ting, what do you say? And chairman, he said he mispronounced the name of Mr. Cheng Kwok Kwan. Mr. Tommy Che, I've heard that you need to play the recording. If you want to filibuster, you may as well have it. Then you can just adjourn the meeting. I'm dealing with this. If you're asking me to go back to the video, then I'll go back. But you have to check sooner or later. Says Tommy Chang asking for to go check the footage. So if there are concerns, rather than drag it on, why don't we just listen to the footage, what he said, and deal with it accordingly? We all know what's going on. You don't have to stare at me. I freaked out. I said that you can adjourn for half an hour so you can make a ruling. Then you should just do it. So are you requesting so? I just making a suggestion. So since you know, as on the chairman's seat, it'll be your own decision. So you don't have to listen to everything the member said. If it's a matter whether the member has made such a request. So what do you mean by suggesting? I'm just saying that we should adjourn the meeting to go back to check the footage. I'm not suggesting anything. So is Zheng Kwok present? So it's not present. He didn't say that somebody mispronounced his name. Well, I shall apologize to him if I mispronounced his name as the chairman. And some other member accused others of offending Mr. Cheng while he's actually not in the meeting room. So you want to make a formal complaint for my alleged offensive behavior? Pardon me, I was the one who made this complaint. I want to clarify my intentions. I said that first, you mispronounced the Chinese name of Mr. Cheng Kwok Kwan. Second, I feel that Mr. Lam Chuk Ting of saying that has been deceiving or Kwan in Chinese. Maybe I misheard him, but I want to clarify. But I heard that from my right, that's what he said. If he said so, was there many offensive statement? Shouldn't Lam Chuk Ting clarify? And as a chairman, you should ask him to retract his remarks. Well, Mr. Chuk is not in the room himself. It didn't say he was offended. If Mr. Lam Chuk Ting says something, let's say, that may be offensive to Mr. Chung, is that offensive to you? Must you make such a complaint? Okay, my take is that I feel that I'm a fair person. There are 6 Legis.Bill members on the island, and these 5 others are my colleagues. So we're all from the Hong Island constituency. I think that for my colleagues, we have to seek justice for my geographical constituency, and also a member of this Central Western District Council, and also my service user, Dr. N. Chang. I was notified by Mr. Chang that he wouldn't mind himself. So Dr. Chang, I thought that he was pronounced as Zhang Guoquan all along. So Dr. Chang was given a message by Mr. Chang. Well, he's not in the meeting room. He couldn't say he's offended. So he's said he wouldn't mind. May I ask Mr. Ao, do you think it's offensive to others? If not, I don't have to deal with this because Mr. Chang himself is not present. Well, when I raised this inquiry, first, he's not in the room, and second, just now Dr. Chang had conveyed Mr. Chang's message. However, I'm still of the view that the chairman should clearly pronounce the name of each member. And then whatever you mispronounce some other member's name, and the members be choked out from others. Even actually, I do mind people mispronounce my name. I got it, so I'm not dealing with it. Well, thanks for the reminder. Sometimes, as chairman, there are a lot of other business going on. I hope they can, and pardon me, and also for Mr. Chang. Why so many people putting up your hand? Let me just in sequence. First is Claudia Mo. So what's your point of order? And Chairman, I have huge doubt on today's meeting arrangements. I hope the Secretary can clarify for me. As we all know, and last Friday, we just passed through the House Committee, the Bills Committee to be formed on this bill. So by evening of Friday, we've been notified by the Secretariat that we have to indicate our intention to join the Bills Committee on midnight Monday. And the first meeting on this Wednesday morning, so we're quite shocked. So what is that huge urgency? I'm not a veteran member of the council, but I'm here for 7 years. I never came across something as urgent as this. Of course, I've checked to go through the House rules. So technically, as I understand, the Secretariat is still acting within the rules. Let's say before convening the first meeting, they would have set out one clear day of joining the membership and convening the first meeting. And they told me that claimed this is not convened by the Secretariat, but at the House Committee, the first member who put up their hand as the most veteran member, who's incumbent member, high preceding members called Abraham Sheck, that we must convene this morning. So that means that you're working backwards because Mr. Abraham Sheck decided that we must convene at this hour. Well, which is overlapping with the PWSC meeting. The House Rule 24B, and where practicable, we should not be overlapping, running a meeting in parallel. So how urgent is it? I agreed with Dr. Low, White Kwok said, a PWSC is a regular meeting. So you are deliberately overlapping us so that he must actually temporarily adjourn his meeting, which is violate the usual practice at Legis.Bill. Secretariat decided that to determine the time slot of the meeting was a decision made by Mr. Abraham Sheck. They asked him, and Abraham Sheck decided that today is the right time for the meeting. And for those of the pandemic-crats, previously in House Comm, first put up their hand and also take a high precedence, and also hope to convene the other Bills Committee. It seems that the Secretary have never asked the member when should be the first meeting. And most recently, for the formation and the first meeting for the Bills Committee, and usually the indication to join the meeting with is 6 to 12 days. That will be the usual duration for sign-up. But why are we violating the long-established rules in Legis.Bill and rush things so hastily?
Ms. Claudia Mo, I understand that the Democrat members did write to the Secretariat, to which replies have been made, and Mr. Sheikh also made replies. I think this has to do with the way we schedule our meetings. I think, to be fair, we should let the Secretariat take the floor. You are casting doubts on the arrangement. I think, in fairness, what's your suggestion? Chairman, why don't you allow us to speak? There are things that Ms. Claudio didn't say that is also of concern to me. Why don't you allow us to make our points before you call upon the Secretariat? That's about the arrangement of the meeting scheduling and the deadline and so on. Yes. If I may, Chairman, hang on a sec. Ms. Mo, you're done with your speech. You've made it very clear. Right, a show of hands, please. That's a good idea. I think the Secretary can make a response in a consolidated manner. Show of hands, please. Well, hang on, please. Chairman, my understanding is that your role is to preside over the election of chairmanship. As to the other arrangements, I think you can lodge a complaint through other channels. Order, please. Order, please. If you spend time discussing this, it's not appropriate, and it's not for you. It's not your role to do this at this meeting. Right? Some said I don't even have to handle this. Other members who think I should handle this, show of hands, please. I let you have a round to speak. All right, a show of hands. They're not about Ms. Claudia Mo's doubts. This is about whether I should handle these matters. Show of hands, please. I understand. Point of order has been raised. I cannot not deal with Starry Lee's point unless you say that her point doesn't have to be entertained. Well, Ms. Starry Lee didn't quite mention which clause in the House rule is in breach. Well, you can make a speech, or you can make a statement as to whether I should handle this. I'm going to give you time as to whether I have to deal with this particular matter. Show of hands, please. All right, on this very question, I'd like to have a listen to your views. I think she has made her point. Can we press the button? It would be really hard for the clerk to jot down the names. Right? Should I deal with the point of order raised by Ms. Claudia Mo? Ms. Claudia Mo made the point about the point of order in relation to the Secretariat's arrangement. I'd like to hear from Ms. Claudia Mo and Mr. Abraham Sheikh. Ms. Starry Lee raised out about my role here. Right, you're raising doubts. So please press the button if you wish to speak. There are 19 members anymore. Count to 3, 1, 2. Quiet, please. Mr. Xiu, if you have point of order arising from Ms. Starry Lee's point of order, well, let's have a listen to Mr. Xiu. Mr. To, if you look at the rules of procedure, there are things that we're supposed to do, and there are things we're not supposed to do. It's not a question of us deciding whether we should do it or not. If it is prohibited by the rules of procedure, even if we wish to do so, we can't. And we can't really, among ourselves, enact a piece of legislation to distribute $500,000. Well, some said I do enjoy this power. If you say that I don't have the power, I feel that I do enjoy the power. But some members cast doubt on this. We cannot go to the court for a judgment. It's only for me to rule on this. And I am worried about me not being sufficiently comprehensive. And I'd like to hear from members, in particular those who are experienced members, who are seasoned members, who are from the legal community. If they say that I've omitted certain points, I'm prepared to listen. And then I decide whether I should have the power. If I feel that I have the power, I will continue. You can judicially review me. If I don't have the power, I will stop forthwith. I think you should consult the legal advisor about the extent of your power, Chairman. Mr. Wong, will you please quiet, please? Will you keep quiet, please? Order, please. Please. I heard what Mr. Wong Kwok Kin said. Basically, he's saying that I think you should take the floor to speak. You're casting doubts. I think you should join the round, join the queue. I'm letting you speak. Order, please. Will you keep quiet? Mr. Wong Kwok Kin is going to take the floor. Mr. Wong, I have you would press the button to speak. That's fine. Whatever you say. There are about 20 members who are going to be speaking on the rules of procedure. Some said I do enjoy the power, some doubt it. If you're noisy like this, I have no option but to adjourn the meeting. I can't carry on like this. I'll let you calm down. Now, whether I have the power to adjourn, I'm going to give you time to have your round. Do you want to carry on shouting like this? Order, please. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, did you say something that I was rubbish? You were pointing at me and you're looking at me and said I was rubbish. I think this is offensive, even if you were not speaking to the mic. Are you going to retract the words? I'll let you have time to ponder over it. I'm sorry, I don't have to go back to the record. Order, please. No point of order. Please hang on. I have to deal with this first. Chairman, if you've got sensitive hearing, I said you should act like a rubbish. You should have some dignity for yourself. Mr. Kwok, I think this is offensive nonetheless. It is in breach of the rules of procedure. Are you going to retract the words? I'm not going to retract the words. I'll let you have another chance. Are you going to retract it? Will the duty staff escort Mr. Kwok out of the chamber? Yes, please, duty staff. I've given you 2 chances. Oh, you keep quiet, please. Order, please. All right. There are 22 members who wish to speak on whether I have the authority to deal with the point of order raised by Ms. Claudia Mo. Anybody else? I'm going to draw a line there. Anybody else? No. 22 members, 2 minutes each. The names, please. Point of order. Will you let me read out all the names first? Have a listen, please. You may say that you've pressed a button and your name is not read, then there will be another round of arguments. I'm going to invite the legal advisor. Yes, names, please. Yes, Mr. Ho. Order, please. Thank you. Names, please. Clerk, please. Read out the names. Members who are waiting to speak are Ms. Claudia Mo, Dr. K.K. Kwok, Mr. Jeremy Tam, Mr. Andrew Wan, Mr. Ao Nok Hin, Mr. Alvin Young, Mr. Gary Fan, Mrs. Regina Ip, Dr. Junius Ho, Mr. Ray Chan, Mr. Roy Kwong, Mr. Charles Mok, Mr. Lam Chak Ting, Mr. Wu Chi Wai, Ms. Tanya Chan, Mr. Ted Hui, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Leung Yu Zhong, Mr. Eddie Chu, Mr. Gary Chan, Mr. Yu Si Weng, Mr. Peter Shiu, 22. Right, you've got the list there. Will you call the members one by one? Mr. Junius Ho, you're going to have your time. You're going to have your time to speak. Yes, please call upon them to speak one by one. Ms. Claudia Mo. Chairman, thank you. I hope that there will be transparency, and I hope that we can talk about this in no uncertain terms. And I don't really want to expose the Secretariat to unfair treatment. And this is really taking us by surprise. It's hard to say whether the Secretariat and the administration or the pro-establishment members are colluding to set things up. As we all know, the administration from Carrie Lam all the way down to John Lee, Ms. Claudia, but we are discussing Ms. Sarah Lee's point. I'm explaining to you, Chairman, I don't think you should barge in like this. I'll give you back 10 seconds. All right, please. And this is the most unfortunate impression that we have. And I hope that we would put this beyond doubt, that we don't really want to see this happen ever again. At the PwC meeting, I am very concerned about the Agrid Park. And there is also another item on the WKCD, and they are seeking funding on such a frequent basis. From John Lee to Carrie Lam, I think it should be the other way around. He is appearing more on TV, so I rank him first, and they are saying that they should have compassion, they should be empathetic, and they should uphold justice. But Taiwan doesn't really want to play along with you.
So I don't understand what's the rush about. So after passing it in House Committee, just within a week from last Friday to today, within a few days, I'm still within my time. I want to discuss this, Chairman. Second, Dr. Kiki Kwok. So members are now speaking in relation to Starry Lee's questioning as whether I don't have the right to deal with the point of order raised by Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that the Chairman has the authority to make a ruling and deal with the point of order raised by Ms. Mo. As we know that the FOOMLA's MLA only a matter of concern for Legis.Bill and the public alike. The usual practice by Legis.Bill is to allow a different time, sufficient time, to let the members decide on their own whether to join this bills committee. For the arrangement this time, I think it's unprecedented and inappropriate. So just within 3 days, we're asking so many members to sign up. And also there's a weekend in the middle. So from the correspondence, I know that this is not the Secretariat's problem. I also understand the dilemma faced by it. So while we make discussion at PWSC, we see that this arrangement to conduct a meeting in parallel with it is inappropriate. I know that PWSC also deal with a lot of public works proposal, and now the public officials are in the waiting room waiting for PWSC. So when Mr. Abraham Sheikh decided on the time slot, have we truly understand that there's a very important meeting next door, which is PWSC? If he insisted on holding the meeting at this time, as a rather incumbent member, I am very disappointed in him. Because there was make other routine meetings, for example, PWSC cannot operate. I think the chairman has the right, the authority to deal with it, and should listen to others as well. Next, Mr. Jeremy Tam. I think the chairman of the convener has the authority to deal with this. So why should we discuss this? The Secretariat's response is different from what I understand synthetically. So just now you said that for the member of high proceedings to put up your hand can decide the time slot. Well, this is not logical. Whoever put up their hand first would either be highest proceedings or not experienced. So if I put up my hand really quick, so what if as the most junior member, then another member of highest proceedings like Mr. Cho put up their hand later? What if the House Committee Chairman have called out my name first, and I'll be the first one? When you said that that the member put up their hand first with high proceedings, that it must be me, because so it doesn't make sense. So look at the House Rules at 21C. C, which the member is joining committee by show of hands at the House Committee meeting which a bill is allocated to the Bills Committee. A member has the highest proceedings is responsible for calling the first meeting of the Bills Committee. So see, so that's not the first person who put up their hand. So it'll be the first person who's speak up first. Sometimes the House Committee may not have stated whoever put all the people who put up their hand, and then the chairman would have said, ask them to sign up later without reading out the full names lists people put up their hand. I think Mr. Lee and Dr. Junius Hill are accusing you that don't have the authority of presiding over a meeting. I would like to remind members we should think calmly because it has to do with Mr. Sheck, whom I hugely admire. For the election of the electrical chairman, something similar happened. Of course, and now it's just a different camp on the chairman's camp. Back then, we doubted whether Mr. Andrew Leung was eligible to run as a chairman. And at the end, Mr. Sheck as like a meeting that he made a ruling as a chairman. The answer we obtained afterwards that whoever presided the meeting should exercise the authority as a chairman. Otherwise, the meeting cannot proceed. Well, of course that you're on the other side of the table, so you just know how to say those stuff in order to protect Mr. Andrew Leung. And today, you are challenging Mr. James Stowe. So what? So Junius Ho, why are you tossing things at him? The last time when I tossed the House rules on the table, then the president have actually sent me away. And House Rule 24. B and D should not be invoked this way as for the meeting announcement and overlapping meetings. So on the chronology of convening meeting, there will be a huge technical mistake. I found there's a major technical mistake. Mr. Alokin. Before I discuss Ms. Mo and Ms. Lee's question, I want to ask more basic question. Are you given sufficient time for each member to speak? I believe that those two members' question context is that while within a short that the time the meeting is called and their allegation that Mr. Sheck made the decision, as of now, we haven't received a defense. Mr. Chairman, you haven't let Mr. Sheck speak. No, how you let the Secretary clarify whether it was its decision. Well, it accused Mr. Kenneth Chan as being very biased and unfair to the Secretary General. And Secretariat, whoever the representative should disclose who determined the date. If the alternative is not other two, there may be some other class prefect made the choice that's even worse. I think the person involved should give a clean account of who is responsible. As chairman, should also clarify on a few offensive statements and libel statements, so forth. When first Tommy Chang said that when he checked the video footage, well, that had been dealt with. Please don't raise that. Okay. Notwithstanding this, so for the rubbish statements, Mr. Court, I think they should be dealt with. I have dealt with that as well. I give the opportunity to let him clarify, and after giving him 2 chances, we haven't dealt with it. As to whether I have the right to deal with Ms. Mo's question, I think you took. Well, can you give me back the 15 seconds you took away from me? Okay, I'll give you back 5 seconds. According to the rules of the Bills Committee, I think you have the authority to discuss that. Okay, Mr. Elvin Young. Well, this question of logic of the rationale raised by Mr. Lee that your function is limited to the election of the chairman. So in the course, also before the election of the chairman, if anything happened at the meeting, so what should your role be? Whether for the point of order or for other reasons, they're not able to allow the meeting to proceed. Does that mean that you can't decide what to do. This doesn't make sense. And by the extension of this logic, that before the election chairman there's any point of order, does that mean we can't deal with him at all? I believe that no one would agree. So just now, Mr. Andrew Wan had correctly reminded other members at the meeting that in 2016 October, on that day for the council to deal with the eligibility of the Andrew Leung as sent as chairman, and I believe the memory is still fresh. So we don't suddenly be get amnesia at this critical moment. You should just recall whoever present, especially those in the establishment camp. Before you speak, you should just go back to the video to see what you have said, so as to help jog your memory to make sure that you say things correctly. Otherwise, you'll be conflicting yourself and be a laughing stock. I feel that Ms. Darley has concerned or excessive and unsubstantiated. So I fully agree the chairman can continue to deal with the Ms. Claudia Mo's point of order, and should provide us the opportunity to find out from the Secretariat that what should be done in practice, so that we can continue to with the meeting proceedings. Otherwise, it will affect the mentality of the members. Well, next is Gary Fan. I noticed that when a lot of colleagues spoken is on whether what I should deal with Ms. Claudia Mo's point of order. You have cited some examples, and also involving Mr. Abraham Sheikh. So Mr. Abraham Sheikh did not plan to speak. However, his name has been floated several times, but then I have drawn the line. However, I see this unfair to him. I reminded him and let him consider if Mr. Sheikh wished to be given his own 2 minutes to outline his position, that whether I should deal with Ms. Mo's motion, whether with the other examples. I will allow Mr. Sheikh to speak despite me drawing the line. However, it will be entirely up to him. Now that there are 10 other colleagues before him, so I let him think about it. Mr. Gary Fan. So just now, Sterling as a House Committee Chairman, as a Deputy Chairperson of Legis.Bill, it seems that he is interpreted or misunderstood the authority of the authority and the role of the chairmen for the smooth proceedings of the meeting. In dealing with the chairman, and also deal with any point of order. And second, well, I have raised it multiple times that according to House rules, the application to which ensure there will be prevent a clash of meetings at the panel and the Bills Committee to prevent just we have problem for the national anthem at the education panel, and another meeting have been conducted in parallel. And PTBSC is also scrutinizing the Wang Chao funding proposal. And this time, another PTBSC, we have to go to Kutong now, the agricultural park funding proposal. We have to suspend the meeting for us to hold this Bills Committee on Fugitive Offenders and MLA Legislation Amendment Bill. This is unsatisfactory. So why are we raising the point of order and chairman, or even ask the secretary to clarify, so it minimize the chance of meeting overlapping, so that members do not have to running around, so that to fulfill our role to scrutinize the bills and various funding proposals. So the SCD is perfectly relevant. I hope that the chairman can apply his authority appropriately to deal with all the point of orders and procedural questions, so for the smooth proceedings of this meeting, and so will not affect the work of other routine meetings.
Mrs. Regina Ip, Chairman. This agenda item is election of chairman. It's been 45 minutes and we still don't have a chairman. You're so inefficient that they are playing up the issue when you mispronounce a character. When Leung Kwok-hong took the council to court. That the judge said that we have to be efficient. I think we only need to put things to the vote. We're not like the UK Parliament. We're not like the Medical Council. I don't think we should drag the matter out any further. We should put this to the vote and get on with the election of chairman as soon as possible. They said that they can be at two places at the same time, and time management is important. You're a seasoned legislator. Efficiency is the operative word. I think we can put this to the vote regarding the point of order. We have to decide by voting. You are a seasoned member. You should understand that. You've got 1 more minute. I'm not going to waste any more time. Dr. Junius Ho, Chairman, you are presiding over the meeting. You're not the chairman of this meeting. So under rules of procedure 44, this doesn't apply to you. You don't have the adjudicating power. So my question is, what power do you enjoy? And you are presiding over the election of chairman and vice chairman. According to Appendix 4, you are merely a presiding member, a presiding officer. So I feel that the legal advisor sitting next to you ought to give you some guidance and elucidate the legal fine point as to your authority. I think the key function of you being there is to preside over the election of chairman. You don't have any residual power to deal with whether it is appropriate to arrange the meeting today. Your only power is to preside over the election of the chairmanship and the vice chairmanship. So will legal advisor clarify on this? Mr. Ray Chen, Mr. James Toh. I'm not done with my time. I'm calling upon the legal advisor. No, this is my time. Will you let me have the time? And within my time slot, I'm inviting legal advisor to address this point. Get on with it quick. Will you give a response during my limited time? So I won't. You don't have the power because you're not chairman. Mr. Ho, please do not burn my time. You have to call upon the legal advisor to address my point. You're banging the table. This is my way of expression. You don't seem to understand what I said. You have problem with your motive. If you don't let me hear a response during my time, this is wrong. Mr. Ho. Quiet, please. You mentioned my motive. I'm talking about your intention. And this is offensive. What made you say that? What made you say I offended you? I was talking about your intention. Mr. Ho. Well, why don't you let the legal advisor address my points within my time? And the Pandams are always saying this. More offensive is this. You're not a presenting member. Well, you are doubting my intention. Chairman. No, you're not chairman. You're a presiding member. Will you call upon the legal advisor to address the legal points that I raised? Will you retract your word? Are you going to retract? Yes, I do. I do retract the words. So will you ask the legal advisor to address my point? I'll be calling upon the clerk and the legal advisor to address after members have spoken. This is a convenient moment to address this, Chairman. Why don't you do this? Are there any problems with your intention? If Is it a problem with your intention? Is it a problem with efficiency? Is it a problem with the way you deal with the issues? I haven't used anybody else's time, and you're using my time. I'm just inviting the legal advisor to address my points. This is a common occurrence, and there are certain issues that you don't have the ability to address, and there may be some differences in our views, and it's for the legal advisor. Mr. Ho, you've got 40 seconds left, so you're going to take up the time. I'm going to leave my time for the legal advisor. If you don't speak anymore, I'm going to call upon Mr. Ray Chen. Presiding officer, you don't have the authority to do this. Mr. Ray Chen. Will the clock start again? Yes, Mrs. Regina Ip talked about efficiency. I'm also concerned about efficiency. When you let Ms. Claudia Mo raise the question and ask the clerk to respond, I suggested that you hear all the members with similar views. And then Ms. Starley raised her hand to say that you don't have the authority to do this, whether you're a presiding officer or whether you are chairman. If Mr. James Toh, sitting in the seat, doesn't have the authority, who else has the authority? Now, if you were chairman, you wouldn't listen to all these points. But will the presiding member have any room to deal with this? I think this is the right time to deal with this. If by convening this meeting it is in breach of the rules of procedure, then it shouldn't be happening. Now, you said that we should put it to the vote. We're not. As far as that, we're dealing with whether Mr. James Doe has the authority. Now, it was Mr. Abraham Sheikh who raised this, and you're merely asking members to speak. Whether you have the authority to deal with this is another matter. Now, Mr. Sheikh picked today, and is it the case that Mr. Sheikh asked you to pick the soonest time? 24B says that you shouldn't have two meetings scheduled at the same time. That there is a meeting with 62 members, there is another meeting with 39 members, and they are overlapping. Now, 24B, there may be doubts raised about the scheduling of the way that the meeting is scheduled. I think this has to be addressed. Mr. Roy Kwong, Chairman, I do think that you have the authority to deal with all the matters prior to the chairman being elected. If you look at number 4, before election, the presiding member should invite members to make nomination and preside over the election. Indeed, when there are problems, when there are questions, we will make our points. If you're efficient enough, you should get Mr. Ho out of the chamber. You are in fact chairman. In fact, you are exercising your authority. You are guiding the committee in the right way. Prior to the chairman being elected, if there are any problems, like point of order raised by Ms. Darren Lee and by Ms. Claudia Mo, we all respect that, and we should be given the chance to speak. And sometimes we may need a response from the administration. Chairman, there are many things that we're not happy with, like I didn't quite hear the words used by Mr. Lam Chok Ting regarding Mr. Chong Kok Kwan's name, the pronunciation of his name. Mr. Ho had an outburst, and he asked you repeatedly, he challenged you repeatedly, your authority. Well, all these have been dealt with. Chairman, I'm calling you chairman. I hope that you should act like a chairman. And we do have faith in the presiding member who are leading us through this election of chairman. You do have the authority to deal with this. We have heard from a dozen or so members. If you're going to say anything which is repetitive, please make it brief. If you give up on your chance, I would appreciate, because this would speed things up. I will respect your right to take the floor to speak. Mr. Charles Mock, thank you for a reminder, Chairman. I'd like to respond to the points made by Mrs. Regina Ip. I don't think what she said is reasonable at all. She said we don't really have to have any discussion. We can just put this to the vote and get it out of the way. And this kind of attitude is to sweep away all the rules and procedures. Why don't we just vote on this bill straight away and insert this in the agenda of the full council and take this through the second and third reading? We would have enough time, ample time, for the Article 23 legislation as well. And she's really citing one court case and mentioned the importance of efficiency. If you look at the entire court case, if you look at the entire background, you will understand this is not the case. If we are merely talking about efficiency, then we don't have to do anything at all. All we need to do is just to sit down and vote and sit down and vote again and again. And this is not reasonable. I take your advice, Chairman. I won't repeat the points already made. If we cannot discuss the matter at this point in time, then all you'll be doing is to elect the chairman and get on with the discussion. The matters will never be dealt with. Mr. Abraham Shack is nodding away. I hope that you would speak in just a moment. You were nodding in agreement, or you were nodding in disagreement. You have to make your stance known. If we don't deal with this now, we're going to lose the opportunity altogether. Mr. Lam Cheuk Ting, Chairman. Under the Rules of Procedure and House Rules of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, Appendix 4, number 3A, it says, and I read, for the election of chairman at the first of a Bills committees and subcommittees, for the election of chairman at the first meeting of the committee concerned, the member president who has the highest precedence shall preside at the election. This is sufficiently clear. So you're presiding over the election. So when you're presiding at the election, do you enjoy the power of a chairman? Ms. Starry Lee and a lot of pro-establishment members raised doubts about this. If the presiding member doesn't enjoy the power to chair the meeting and deal with the points of procedure, then will you imagine then the meeting will be descending into one where nobody would be able to control anything, to maintain order, like Mr. Jonas Ho and Mr. Kwok Wai Keung imputed motive, improper motive to a particular member, and if the chairman doesn't have the power, and if in the course of the meeting we don't have a quorum, and if there are points of order, then we cannot deal with them. Would it be reasonable? So I think that it is undoubtable that you do enjoy the authority. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Chairman, I think when you are presiding at the election, you do have the duty to clarify any matters that happen before the election of the chairman. You should have this a reasonable right to do so. Some say that we can put things to the vote. But in the Council, when we're debating issues, it is important to have this convention. If there are doubts, if there are arguments, we cast them aside, we just put things to the vote. Then where will this leave the Council? So, Chairman, I think that when you maintain the order of the meeting, you should allow members to have sufficient time to clarify and to discuss issues that are controversial, and this is only reasonable. Chairman, you ought also to handle the efficiency of the meeting.
So no matter how you manage the meeting, you shouldn't see that by not allowing members to speak at a way to manage a meeting. If you see that you want to expedite the pace, so let's say sometime for 3 minutes you shrink it to 2 or to 1 minute. So while protect the members' right to speak and ensure the orderly conduct of meetings. So I see the chairman presiding officer has the right to deal with any point of order raised before the election of chairman. Otherwise, of any order issues happen during the meeting will not be resolved. Therefore, I agree that you have the authority to deal with the ND order meetings. I can see the public officials at LC1 had already left the meeting. So this meeting arrangements is very unsatisfactory, also wasting the time of public officials and also not allowing the members to concentrate on their business. I see those in the establishment camp. Well, not just the establishment camp would have a hold on the public officials. The pandemics also would discuss with public officials. So today we have to suspend the PWSC at 8:42 and come over here. While this Bills Committee has over 60 members, actually we have a bigger membership than PWSC. Please don't worry. I still have a minute or so. So just now, as our party leader, Civic Alvin Young, has said that in the election of the party council chairman, the Abraham Sheikh sat on the chair as a presiding officer to exercise the authority and asking the members to return to their seat and asked to order the change of venue and ordered banning members from entering the new venue or even throw members out. These are all on the Hansard. And afterwards, as Secretary General has said, in the conduct of election, including this meeting, the authority of the chairman, those within his reasonable authority to deal with the election. I see it as appropriate handling of the meeting. You exercise the right authority for the efficient and smooth conduct of meetings so as to prepare for the election. Ted Hui, no matter how you pronounce the name, call your presiding officer or the chairman, at this stage of the Bills Committee, you have the authority to deal with any point of order. I would inform the public the context. According to the House Rules 21C, the convening of the Bills Committee of Fugitive Offenders that will be one of the highest public proceedings. However, it's difficult for the public to understand that why you asking Mr. Abraham Sheikh is actually not the member of the highest proceedings. So I hope that the Secretariat can explain to the public how do you get in touch with Mr. Sheikh? Is that you did not manage to get hold of other members? Why I said this? So at the end, Abraham Sheikh decided to convene a meeting at a very hastily. So this is not an illegitimate meeting. Whether it's a chairman or a presiding officer, whoever in the seat should question the procedure. So if we can decide to hold the meeting and elect a chairman inappropriately. So because not all 70 members have took part, well, maybe some other members have missed the opportunity to join due to this inappropriate procedure because they also should be entitled to vote for the chairman. So why do we sustaining this inappropriate procedure? So Mr. Abraham Sheck, quite a seasoned legislator, have been hosted a lot of meetings and also exercised his authority when he's presiding over the council chairman. Well, because Mr. Abraham Sheck actually evicted me from the chamber, so why can't you explain? Mr. Kendall, I want to say something to Mr. Sheck. We're good for the rule. The House rules when we asked. So the joining the Quiz Committee by show of hands have been a long tradition. If there are 2 or 3 persons put up their hands at once, that whoever had the highest precedence will be counted. It's only one. The name of the colleague will be shown up at the first on the list. As for when would the first meeting be held, usually the Secretariat would consult the first name on the membership list. Mr. Leung will not deal with the most point of order. We'll deal with it mysteriously. Or I won't go into that. Well, if you don't want to say it, you can give up your slot. You can stop now. Because I will let Mr. Abraham check. Well, I'll not stop speaking then. Mr. Leung Yu-chong. Thank you, Mr. Alvin Young and Mr. Wen. Recount the council chairman election episode. So Kenneth Chan, while on the Secretary General, have made the following comments in his para 8. What he said: when presiding over a meeting, the presiding officer should have a reasonable authority required to exercise the roles and functions as a presiding officer, including maintaining the procedure and order of the meeting. When exercising his power, the presiding member depends on the circumstances to evict disorderly member. So we have the reasonable authority to deal with this. So some members raised it that you don't have the authority to deal with this. Even though we haven't quite entered the election proceedings, of course you should be able to authority to deal with some business, including the point of order raised by other members. So you do have the authority, even though you're just a presiding officer. I think you have the right to deal with this. So back in 2016, when members raised the point of order, we also allowed him to speak. So also both Pandams and Pro-Establishment Camp have also spoken. So the presiding officer member can deal with this. So when Star Lee's accused you don't have the authority to deal with, I beg to differ. So point of order raised by Ms. Moda, you must deal with it. Mr. Eddie Chu. So like Ms. Jenny Yip and Dr. Junius Ho mentioned that we should put it to a vote. I hope that the democracy is more than voting. Also, we need to have be fully informed and not debate. Mr. Chu, Mr. Ho Chun Yin didn't say that. Oh, he's just whispering with the seat. So Ms. Yip Ho made her turn that we should just put it to a vote. But now Ms. Mo is questioning that whether the meeting should be held today. I think it should take a priority above all the proceedings, which include the election. So even at the end, no one can make a ruling, or let's say the presiding member have been deemed as don't have like authority. However, it doesn't mean that other members cannot speak or raise their point of order. And Mr. Leung Yucheng had a point. That's recounted his way of handling of the council election, chairman election, as for the nationality of Mr. Andrew Leung or other kind of procedural questions that a lot of members have spoken. So looking at the Hansard, that Mr. Lee Baitland said the context was that quite a few members, including myself, who was standing behind Mr. Leung, and Ms. Lee said, "I hope you to understand." Said to Mr. Leung that if the members are standing behind you without justifiable grounds, I think there's a breach of the rules and procedures. I hope that you can return to your seat. If they refuse to return to your seat after multiple advice, I think you should enforce the ROP to enforce the order. So that's why Mr. Lee would see that the presiding member would have the authority. So Mr. Gary Chan. So a lot of members have asking you to deal with the meeting arrangements, time slot, and sign-up procedures. I think today's meeting is not the appropriate venue for this. For 21C of House Rules, it also mentioned that after the formation of the Bills Committee, the format, the way to sign up for membership, the date of the first meeting time. Well, that is the function delegated by the House Committee. If any members have views to this arrangement, they should raise it at the House Committee. As for whether yourself have the authority to preside over today's meeting, I want you to go back to ROP Appendix 4, Bracket 4 on the election procedures. So when the Bills Committee have yes to have a chairman, they should have a presiding member, which is presiding member and is not the word chairman. So your power will actually be under constraint. Your only role is to help this Bills Committee to elect a chairman instead of dealing with other relevant matters. And Mr. To, as the member of highest proceedings, you have participated in countless elections for chairman. Today we have used over 1 hour 30 minutes and yet to manage to elect a chairman. This is unprecedented. I believe that Mr. Cho himself may have own views on this rule. When you, as the presiding member, you should preside over the election fairly and justly. I hope you can get on with it as soon as possible. Mr. Yu. So as the presiding member, so Mr. Gary Chan made it clear enough that you are the presiding member but not the chairman. So your power is restricted. According to a House Rule Appendix 6, it should invite nominations right away instead of procrastinating. So, as a member of the highest proceedings, I think you should understand so that not it affect your credibility. So power is to invite nominations. It's not for you to interpret that other matters. I think you should be note of the limits of your authority. Mr. Shu Ka-chun, as for instruction, I will try to speak. I might not use up my 2 minutes. Just now, we remarked about deliberation without decision, which of course is bad. However, if is decision without deliberation is even worse. I think it don't warrant in debate. So I don't know what should I call you after the preceding chaos. So we have presiding member, a chairman, a presiding officer, or other titles. So how should I call you? I think it should be discussed as for the efficiency.
Well, this is important. I think we ought to clarify all the controversial points before we get started with the discussion. And this is in the interest of better efficiency. I think we should be fair to the Secretariat. The Secretariat has always been very fair and equitable. And the Secretariat seems to leave a pretty undesirable impression to members, since we are asked to sign up within such a short time, and things will be chaotic. If we can hear from the Secretariat, it would be a good idea. I support the idea of Mr. James To dealing with the point of order. Dr. Cheng Chung Tai requested to speak after I've drawn the line. I won't allow that. But I think that, as I said, other members cited the presidents and what they describe as the president. When they mentioned Mr. Abraham Sheck, Mr. Sheck hasn't indicated his intention to speak. Are you going to speak, Mr. Sheck? I'll be only too delighted to speak. And I must apologize to members. I decided on the date in a legitimate manner. I was the member of the highest presidents, and we'd just like to have the meeting convened as soon as possible and deal with the issues in accordance with the procedure. It is shorter than normal, but we have 60 members, and we have had sufficient time for members to take part. Now, whether you heap criticism on me is entirely a matter for you. Chairman, the third thing, I'm calling you the chairman. Now, whether I'm calling you a presiding officer or chairman, you're still presiding over the meeting. So whoever is in the chairman's seat should enjoy the authority to preside over the election of chairman. Now, when you're sitting in this chairman seat, you have to deal with the issues that you ought to deal with. Ms. Starrelly, you raised this particular point. You've heard from all the members. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to make a response and then call upon the Secretariat. I'd like to yield the floor to the Secretariat. If you give up on your chance, are you giving up on your chance? Yes. All right, Secretariat. We're not dealing with Ms. Claudia Mo's doubts about the meeting arrangement, the deadline, the 2-3 days or so. We're discussing whether, as chairman or presiding member here, whether I have the authority to deal with the doubts raised by members like Ms. Claudia Mo. Who's going to take the floor first? Legal advisor? Chairman, thank you. As part of the Secretariat, I hope that I would have the opportunity to make some clarifications. The Secretariat staff are serving the LegCo in an impartial manner. As regards the chairman's power, if you refer to Appendix 4 of the House Rule, it talks about the procedures for the election of chairman. Item 3 for bills, committees and subcommittees. For the election of chairman at the first meeting of the committee concerned, the member present who has the highest precedence shall preside at the election. This is what the House rules provide. As regards the power of presiding over the meeting, the House rules do not have a specific stipulation. In general terms, the presiding member should have all the necessary and reasonable authority to deal with the meeting. If I may cite from a Secretariat's paper, the presiding member should have all the reasonable power to perform the function of the presiding member, and that would include the maintenance of order and to take action necessary to make sure that the election is proceeding in a smooth manner. This is quoting from the paper issued by the Secretariat before regarding election of chairman. Now, chairman members are also raising concerns about how the meeting is scheduled today. I think we do have the obligation to clarify the requirements. Well, I have to be fair. If I let you have the floor, then I'll be moving into the second part. Maybe the Secretary is really upset in a way. Now, some members might say that the Secretary General can speak on this. So, legal advisor, I don't think I would allow you to go into detail about this. Will you hang on a sec? Legal advisor, on Ms. Dara Lee's point, do you have anything else? No? Clerk? Nothing? What point of order? I just hope that the legal advisor will clarify more. The pro-establishment member, I can't remember who, he asked you to invite a nomination for the chairmanship. The paper makes it clear. I hope that he will clarify on this. Now, it's only at the beginning of the election. Well, let's deal with the issue one at a time. Now, we are dealing with Ms. Dara Lee's doubts about the extent of my authority. Well, I'd like to clarify. Well, you're going to have the chance to raise this. I'd like to clarify the legal advisor's point regarding the Secretariat's paper about the extent of the chairman's power. Can you make available the paper to us? Well, that would be helpful to me. I remember I read the paper myself. I don't have the paper in front of me. And they're sharing this paper between them. They are passing the paper back and forth. Since there is such a request, I think we can make available a copy to members. And this is a serious matter. I can't take any decision rashly. Any decision I take will be subject to judicial review. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Before the adjournment, I hope that you would take into consideration this very important point, that the scheduling of the meeting would affect the election result. Now, I hope that you would take into account this particular point during the adjournment. Mr. Lam, I take this very seriously because if I take a wrong decision, in the worst case scenario, whether it is yes or no, it would render this meeting totally illegitimate. And there are a lot of judicial reviews being filed, and if I do anything wrong, it would render the scrutiny completely illegitimate. It would grind everything to a halt. So I think after the adjournment, I'm going to tell you the rationale about my decision in either way. You may not be under the same pressure because you're not sitting in this seat. If there is some judicial review, I'm going to become the respondent. Whether the legal fees will be picked up by the Secretariat or whether will be borne by myself. And I might even have to resort to crowdfunding if the fees are not going to be borne by the Secretariat. And all my lifelong savings will be gone. Now, these might be nonsense. You may say that I'm really overanalyzing the situation, but I think that I have to deal with this. I don't think the Secretariat will be bearing my legal expenses if anything untoward were to happen. I adjourn the meeting for the time being. Perhaps I name a time. You have to clarify the purpose. Well, I adjourned the meeting to consider the legal fine points. I've been inviting the clerk and join me for some discussions. All right, it will no less than 15 minutes. If you want to pop the loo, it would make it easier for you. No less than 15 minutes. And I'll be giving you notice 5 minutes prior to the meeting being reconvened. Thank you.